I'm Corvin Haze Lord Hayes. This is Detective Paveclaff and the Cheddar worth thinking about. Detective Paveclaff stood in the refrigerated aisle, his hands folded behind his back like a man surveying fine art. The new supermarket, Hickory and Sons Grocers, had opened 5 miles out from his abandoned paper mill he called home, a place given to him as a gift, though the circumstances of the gifting were better left unexplained. Some gifts were wrapped in ribbons, others in silence. The cheese selection stretched on for what seemed like acres. Cheddar blocks in every shade from pale cream to nearly sunset orange stood arranged like little monuments of dairy. Paveclaff narrowed his eyes. This wasn't a decision one made lightly. It had to be a good cheese. A thinking cheese. Yes. A cheese that could stand the quiet of long nights. Sharpen the mind rather than dull it. His thumb grazed his chin, brushing the faint scent of old mustard from his tie up to his nose. He smelled it, pondered it, and made no attempt to clean it. There were bigger concerns. Beside the cheese, the honey buns sat under plastic domes, glowing under the flickering fluorescent light like relics of a simpler world. He'd already committed to one. A man only walks into a store with $10 in his pocket if he intends to leave with both something he wants and something he didn't know he needed. Cheese. Honey bun. The plan was set. Precise. Balanced. And then he saw it. A dollar bill. Crisp as the morning paper, lying face up near the end of the aisle. Paveclaff paused, looking down at it as though it might speak. A single rogue dollar. It complicated everything. The balance was broken. Pocketing the bill with the solemn air of a man adjusting his coordinates, he drifted toward the checkout lanes, still turning the idea over in his head. Cheese on a honey bun. The thought circled him like a low-flying crow. First, it sounded grotesque. Then, maybe not. Sweet and savory had danced together before. Stranger unions have brought about good things. And just as his mind floated somewhere between the culinary and the metaphysical, he saw it. A crooked sign nailed to the end of the aisle. Remember, as far as anyone knows, we are a nice and normal family. The tilt of it caught his eye more than the words. Things that are crooked. Things that were crooked tended to be that way for a reason, he once said to no one in particular. He muttered a soft, And so began the oddest case he'd never meant to solve. One that would unfold right under his nose, while his mind wandered the deeper matters of mustard stains, misplaced signage, and the possibility of sweetened cheese. He moved on, his gait slow but deliberate, as though his shoes were conducting a secret investigation with the floor tiles. The cheese and the honey bun sat in his basket like two quiet passengers waiting for a bus that would never arrive. He passed the coffee aisle, which smelled of burned promises and false awakenings, and the cereal aisle, where the mascots on the boxes smiled a little too widely for his liking. There were clues everywhere, he thought, but then again, there always were. Life was built from the rotten crumbs of clues, and no one wanted to sweep them. A jar of pickles lay shattered near the frozen peas. The brine glistened like an oil spill in a supermarket light. Paveclaff stepped over it, not out of carelessness, but out of a deep, unspoken agreement between him and fate. If the pickles wanted to be noticed, they would have asked politely. A woman in one of those little electric carts was marooned near the canned yams, her arms stretched out toward the furthest, loneliest can on the bottom shelf. Paveclaff, having the innate sense for stranded souls, drifted toward her without a word. He leaned down, plucked the can free from its solitary confinement, and placed it in her basket. She didn't say thank you. She only stared at his hat, a weathered thing, shaped halfway between a fedora and an accident. And then her eyes lowered, fixing on the faint yellow constellation of mustard across his tie, judging quietly. But Paveclaff wasn't bothered. Judgment was just another form of observation, and observation was the cheapest currency in detective work. He nodded once, not to her, but to the universe, and turned to leave. Behind him, on the scene, a man in a threadbare coat tiptoed past, slipping in the puddle of abandoned pickle brine with the grace of a sack of wet laundry. His body briefly became horizontal, his arms conducting a symphony of regret before colliding with the ground. A wallet tumbled from his pocket like a confession. Paveclaff didn't notice. He was too busy contemplating the apple juice. It sat at the very back of the lowest shelf, in the darkest, most unreachable nook, as though placed there by some malevolent fruit syndicate. He crouched, reached, and retrieved it, turning the bottle over in his hands. $7.99, he whispered. A juice that knows no shame. As he stood, behind him, an off-duty officer had already pounced. The would-be thief pinned beneath the great cosmic error of his own shoes. A lady's voice rang out, sharp, clear, the sort of tone that slices through the fog of a man's wandering mind. "That's the man who stole my purse." Paveclaff didn't hear. He was busy calculating the final arrangement. The cheese, the honey bun, the absurdly priced juice. The cart lady had already wheeled away, leaving no trace of gratitude, only the lingering scent of too much lavender. And so, the case solved itself, like a riddle no one remembered asking. All the while, Detective Paveclaff stood there, studying the checkout lane's impulse buy rack, wondering why anyone would buy sunglasses in a grocery store at night. There were always mysteries, but rarely were they his. At the self-checkout kiosk, Paveclaff stood motionless, studying the screen as though it were an ancient relic, recovered from some archaeological dig beneath the deli counter. The machine blinked expectantly. He placed the cheese on the scale. The honey bun, the juice, total $11.49. He reached into his coat. One pocket, two pockets, an inside pocket designed specifically for parking validation slips he never intended to use. And finally, the $10 bill emerged, along with the found dollar. 11 in total, 49 cents short. The machine blinked again, this time less patiently. Lives full of small deficits, he murmured, as if consoling the scanner. Behind him, the off-duty officer was marching the purse thief out of the automatic doors, the man's shoes still squeaking faintly with pickled juice remorse. The woman who had declared him guilty was already recounting her story to a clerk, adding flourishes that hadn't happened, as all honest stories do. Paveclaff, meanwhile, stood fixed, calculating. He reached into his coat once more, and out came a single quarter, a nickel, and a Canadian dime he had kept since a case that ended in Winnipeg, was it? Or a laundromat. Memory, like cheese, softened with time. Still short. The young cashier at the next station, a boy whose name tag read Jeremy, trainee, noticed his quiet predicament and, without a word, plucked 2 coins from the penny tray by the register, slid them toward him, as if sliding a note across a poker table. Paveclaff nodded. Not in thanks, exactly. More in recognition. The quiet acknowledgement that all cases, even the small ones, resolve themselves by invisible hands. Transaction complete. The cheese, honey bun, and juice were bagged together in a lopsided paper sack. As he walked in, the store's automatic doors parted like some ceremonial farewell, and a gust of spring night air tangled in his tie. Under the flickering sign of Hickory and Sons, he paused to think about the cheese on the honey bun again. The thought had matured. Like a fine cheddar, it had aged in his mind. Savory and sweet, he thought. A good pairing. Like a thief and a thief of fallen pickles, or a detective in a mustard stain. Across the lawn, the crooked family sign in the window caught his eye once more. Crooked still, and always would be. He bit into the honey bun. Plain. The cheese would have to wait. Case closed. Or perhaps never opened.